What's going on, people? Welcome to another episode of the Natty News Daily podcast. Recording from the home gym. Just finished a good leg day on a nice rainy Sunday afternoon. It's a vibe in here, man. It's a vibe. Get the door open, get the sound of the rain. It's something special. Um, I don't know how many people are going to know who you are, Paul. So, Paul, welcome to the podcast, my man. Me and you go back a number of years, but I think a couple of the listeners probably are like, "Who's this gentleman on the podcast?" So, give a little backstory, man. Quick little rundown of where you've been in the bodybuilding world, because you've got you and your family, man. You've got a story.
Yeah, man. Glad to be here. Glad to be here with you. Yeah, we do go back quite a ways. But yeah, I'm Paul Iatomasi Jr., natural pro bodybuilder, promoter, and judge. Me and my father and my brother were all active professional natural bodybuilders, which is a rarity. It's actually something that's never been done. But yeah, we just promoted two shows together for a long time, and you actually were a participant a few times and you brought some clients, and that's how we kind of connected. And we're going to kind of dive into your competitive past
Yeah,
with our show, The Natural USA, which was an IMBF Pro qualifier.
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, if we go back, so we backtracked to 2019. So we're
Yep,
talking 7 years ago now.
which is
Uh,
crazy, by the
yeah,
way.
that's weird to say.
Yeah,
So I'd never been exposed to the WNBF or really anything outside of the local Canadian scene, which
sure.
is primarily affiliated under the IFBB NPC banner. Natural shows, but
What is that? This was that the CBBF or something like that?
so the CPA is the Canadian
Okay.
Physique Alliance, which is like the regional stuff, and then yes, the CBBF was kind of the next level up from that. I think it still exists, but it's really kind of off to the wayside now. But I remember kind of learning about guys like Alberto Nunez, Brian Whitaker. I have his poster up on the wall right here that I get to look at every day as motivation.
That's
And
awesome.
those names and others I'm not remembering were tied to the WNBF. I was like, "Oh, WNBF, what is this? What is this?" Right? I didn't know really anything about it, and that's when okay, start researching. Okay, natural bodybuilding, drug tested, polygraph tested. Okay, I like what this is looking like, and then I was like, well, what's around? And at the time, like I don't know the history of WNBF Canada, but I know locally there was nothing. But in Rochester, your neck of the woods, Rochester, USA, it was 3.5, 4 hour drive south of for me across the border, and I was like, well, I could go that far. I've traveled to shows in Ontario that are closer than that, further than that, right? So that's when I probably would have emailed you or your dad and been like, "Yo, I'm Canadian. What's involved in this?" And it was basically like, you get a WMF Canada membership and down you can come. So that was a week after my planned show locally. So timing was good. So drove down with my family and what's crazy to say, my now wife, girlfriend at the time, and rocked up to the INBF Natural USA, and I don't want to deep dive into the show itself as far as how it was run and everything, but nothing but positive to say. You guys were great. The tanning team was great, venue was good, lighting was awesome, and that was a good eye opener for me because it exposed me to new talent, which I think was
Sure.
really good because it just kind of broadens the horizon a little bit. But what I think was the best thing for me competitively was not winning. So I was with Daniel Dennis,
Yep.
and I third place is skipping me. What was his name?
I don't remember the third place guy's name, but I do
I can picture
remember.
him right in front of me right now. But there was three of us, maybe 4 or 5 total in the lightweight class. But there was three of us that I still can probably find the video on YouTube. It was a 27-minute prejudge.
Yeah, which is insane for four competitors in a class.
Yeah, because y'all couldn't make up your mind on who was 1, 2, and 3, and
Yep.
that was great for me because locally I'd never been in a judging of that duration, and it exposed my weaknesses. It humbled me greatly.
Yep.
Took second to Daniel that day, but I think what really was the catalyst for me was seeing Wesley Bremick in person.
Yeah.
So Wesley was the overall winner at the time. He was coached by Cliff
Yep.
Wilson, who I'm sure anybody listening will know Cliff, but also Cliff is my coach and pretty much was. So that was 2019. So pretty much 2020, I kind of rocked up with him. But seeing Wesley in person truly was the most impressive natural athlete I'd ever seen at the time. He was probably an inch or two shorter than me and probably weighed more than me. Um, just just a ball of muscle, and just to see that quality of athlete kind of really opened my eyes, because I would have been 22 at the time, maybe 23, whatever it was, and to see someone a couple of years older than me, maybe he was 30, but just the quality of athlete, I was so impressed. I was so impressed by what that was, and
Mhm.
that kind of was my first real run at your guys' event, and
Sure.
I can honestly say in many ways that was a catalyst for me in a lot of ways, as a not only as an athlete but as a coach.
100%. And I think that this was before Natty News Daily. I mean, this was
On
before
before.
this was just Leroy Rowland showing up to a show with his girlfriend or fiance at the time. And I remember you can kind of pick as a athlete slash promoter, you can kind of pick and see who is a student of the game. And when you talked to us, I think it was like the night before the show. That was the first time we kind of talked.
Yeah,
And I remember just the way you handled yourself, the questions you were asking, whether it was pertaining to the show or even yourself. I already kind of knew that you were somebody that could be good before I even saw you on stage, just based on the conversation piece, like in any type of sport, there's different levels of IQ, right? Like people would say LeBron James has got an excellent basketball IQ, which he does because he's been in the game for so long and he was a prodigy, right? So you kind of right out of the gate, I knew that you can handle any type of positive or negative criticism too about your physique and stuff like that. And whenever you're talking to an athlete, especially post show, you always, as a promoter, you want to highlight the person's strengths and then kind of downplay their flaws or things that they can work on. But you really wanted to hear that criticism, right? And those are the people that end up doing the best, because that loss for you, which honestly, it could have went practically any way among the three of you guys in the top three that day. I remember telling you that. I still remember that class, to be honest. And as a promoter, I don't always agree with my judges. That's one thing that promoters sometimes they back their judges 100% no matter what, and sometimes like that they don't really care. I knew that looking at the three of you guys that you had the overall most potential, just based on your overall physique and then, like I said, your attitude and the questions you were asking. So it was no surprise to me that you were going to come back with vengeance in the next time you competed, which I believe was that 2022 season. And I'm humbled and feel great that you actually chose a Natural USA again to try to earn pro status in, because I know when I was coming up, because we used to travel all over the place to get our WNBF Pro card, and that was a different time and a little bit of a different era at the beginning when we started. But if there was a show like that, especially with that title name, the Natural USA, with the under the IMBF banner, I would have loved to do that show, regardless of who the promoter was.
yeah,
Because at the end of the day, you can call you're Mr. Natural USA, and I would have loved to just compete in a show like that. So I'm just proud of me and my family to even be able to put something together where a lot of top athletes looked forward to doing that event, whether it was, when we were promoting with the OCB or with the IMBF, because we were doing two shows for like a 5 year span. And we had guys like you and Justin Draper, Wesley Bremick, like you mentioned, that won the overall. Magnum McRae won his pro card at our OCB show years ago. So we've had a lot of top talent come out regardless if we had 40 competitors or at 110, because we've had that range over the years. Um, but yeah, I mean, like I said, you stuck out to me and my brother, and we talked about you personally, where we were like, this kid kind of reminds us of ourself in a way. You had a high IQ at a young age, and you brought a really complete package, which is rare to see.
Yeah. Yeah, like the thing that like I think was so good was up until that point, I hate to say this because I sound like a dickhead, but like I never lost.
Yeah.
I'd won the CBBF Canadian Nationals. I won that lightweight class. At the time we had like regional, provincial, and nationals. Like I won. Like as a bodybuilder, I was pretty much untouched in my class and stuff like that. Never an overall, wasn't there yet, but as a lightweight, it was kind of like okay, if I'm going to go to a show as a lightweight, it's probably going to be a positive outcome.
Mhm.
So to come and not win your show, you know what I mean? That was my first like kind of loss.
Yeah.
And it was good. I really am glad in hindsight that happened. I really am because it got me exposed to where I need to be better.
Sure.
It got me connected with my coach now, who has been pivotal into where I am now, 7 years later. So, obviously connected with you guys, which would have never happened. And you guys over the years have always been supportive and kind. And I think the one thing that I love that bodybuilding is helped me gain in life is just these moments in time. You know what I mean? When I think, and we'll get to it, but when I was prepping for 2022, I still have the message saved, a random Facebook message from Wesley. Hey man, I've been following, go get it. Like three years later, out of nowhere, we'd never spoke outside of that show probably. And it's just like these serendipitous moments in time, man. And I think it's so special. And everybody wants to win, everybody wants titles and championships and this and that, but there's so many little things that I think back of, and I can, the trophies right now, because we're in renovations, they've been in boxes for months. But I can sit here with you now with a grin on my face and be like, I remember that. And that was so special, right?
No, and like you said, those moments sometimes because there's not a lot of money in this sport, right? So it's like you remember those nuggets, and
Hi, man.
especially someone like Wesley turned pro. Him and his brother were one of the few pro brothers
Yep.
combos that have been around, and like you said, just to hear that from a fellow pro, you know what I'm saying? Someone that you looked up to at that contest when he won the overall. It's just a little extra fire. It's a little extra respect. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes those are the things that we need as athletes to find that little extra motivation. Do you know what I'm saying? And I've had a lot of little moments like that with different pros or amateurs over the years because it's that common respect that you have for your peers, but it's also that camaraderie. And that's one of the best parts about natural bodybuilding is finding those, having respect for others and having friends for life. Kind of, like I got at least 20 to 30 people that are just somewhat that I can call my friend
Yep.
because of the sport, whether I was rubbing elbows next to them or we were backstage together somewhere or they were judging one of the shows or I was judging them or whatever. And it's like,
Yep.
you just never forget that kind of stuff. And it's important.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's something more people need to put attention into. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because you can kind of just get in this, the bodybuilding, Flex magazine. You're sitting by yourself with your hoodie on, and no one's around, and you know, fuck everybody. This is me. This is my only thing, and I get that, and I've been there. And maybe it's just because I'm older, right? I can say that now that like, hey, allow yourself to make friends because you might not talk to them every day, but
Mhm.
they might throw you a bone when you need it, right? Like you and your brother Wesley, Nunez. Every once in a while you get that message, dude, you look fucking sick. From you guys, poof,
Awesome.
send me to the moon.
Yeah. Well, you need that because, like I said, there isn't a lot of money to be made at this.
Yeah,
So to get that kind of respect from your peers, to be honest, it's one of the main reasons why I compete. I want respect from others. And I think that's a lot of people's underlying motivation because everyone's got their own why, right?
Totally.
And even now in my 40s, I think that that's probably one of my underlying motives is just respect,
Yeah.
you know?
100%. Win, lose, or draw, right?
Yeah, and just and trying to see obviously if I can better my previous, but the respect is kind of like intertwined with that.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%.
So going into 2022, obviously you linked up with Cliff in like 2020. You were doing your own prep going into the 2019 show.
No, so I had a previous coach. Shout out to Sean. He was great.
Uh-huh.
Local guy. This was way back before online coaching existed, or at least anywhere near what it is now. So,
Yeah.
when I started in, well, I did my first prep myself in 2015, and then 2016 was like, okay, probably should get some assistance. And he was local big guy bodybuilder in the gym, and that was how you found a coach back then. Probably is just who's bigger than me. And I knew he'd competed before. And Sean was great. Really nothing but good things to say about him. He prepped me 2016, 2017, and 2019. But then, after that, I think Sean was enhanced and worked with a lot of enhanced competitors. And I think there's just different practices that sometimes don't quite mesh
For sure.
with methods and stuff. So nothing against him. Genuinely, he was fantastic. And for the I'm an only child, so to have that mentor that was just a man older than me, Sean was very good for that because I would have been 19, 20, 21. You know what I mean? So that was great. I think Sean was awesome. But then yes, after that it was like, okay, if I do want to take this natural bodybuilding thing seriously and again branch outside of the umbrella of the IFBB CPA at the time, that's where kind of Cliff started to slide into that position of like, okay, this is someone who's coached natural athletes for extended period of time. Who knows how many pro cards he had by that time? And I saw his work in person with Wesley, so that was another kind of notch on the Cliff Wilson belt that convinced me basically that like, if I want to work with somebody, it's him. And then yeah. So basically, 2020, I linked up with him and kind of mapped out like, okay, what do we need to improve upon for 22, and off we went.
Yeah, and my understanding with Cliff is he's very meticulous when it comes to bringing up little body parts and stuff like that in the off season.
Yeah,
And then not only that, giving yourself plenty and plenty of time, A, to hold on to a certain body weight, and then B, to diet down slow as possible. So those are things that over time as well. And actually, me and my family have been in talks with some other natural pros about the difference of the early 2000s versus now, and a lot of it is the evolution of the coach,
yeah,
right? Like
totally.
I don't necessarily think that athletes right now in the pro ranks are any better than the early 2000s. The difference is the evolution of the coach.
For sure.
So the level of conditioning and stuff like that is higher. It doesn't necessarily mean that the athlete is technically better. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah,
But Cliff is very on top of his game when it comes to those types of things, and even going into, me, my dad, and my brother are going to try to compete as pros all in one contest probably sometime next year. And I told my dad, I said, you can't just pick a show out 6 months out anymore. Those days are over. I said, you got to pick something out like a year and a half to 2 years in advance. For him, it's a little different. He's in his 60s and he's still competitive. So what he's got is what he's got. But for somebody that's trying to better themselves from a previous outing, you literally have to do that now.
oh yeah,
Like you,
yeah. When we
yeah,
were mapping out, I knew. I think 2022 was kind of the timeline that we agreed upon because prior to that, I competed 15, 16,
yeah,
17, 18 off, competed 19. So I'm sure at some point he was like, "Okay, you need time to grow, man. Like we gotta do this, right?" And
exactly.
those preps were probably 16 to 20 weeks, and they were balls. Like when I think of what I did back then, I'm like, "Fuck, I was ballsy, man." Like I remember 2 hours on the stairs and fish and asparagus. Like I remember those days, and that's what it took at the time. But when I think of what I do now in comparison, it's almost like a whole different ball game. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's because, like you said, the evolution of things. Like I literally was talking to Cliff last week, and I was like, so probably 28. What are we thinking for shows? And it's the middle of 2026. You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
you're exactly right, and that's just because you're thinking, okay, I got this long to improve because if we map back from those shows, we're probably mapping back historically for me anywhere from 6 to 8 months because we take it slow and you're like, okay, that means well, it's not 2 years. It's actually only a year and 2 months that I have of off seat, right? So, you're right, right? You're looking ahead and planning because gone are the days of like, I mean, people still do it, but
Yeah, people still do it, but it's I think
touch that, right? They're like, okay, I'm going to do a show, and I get clients all the time. They're like, I want to compete, and I'm like, okay, when's the show? And it'll be you know June right now. They'll be like, I want to do a show in November, and I'm like, poof, like no way, not me. But that's different standards, right?
yeah, but it's also it depends on what you're comfortable doing as a coach,
Yes.
one, and then what that athlete wants out of competing. So that conversation has to be had if you and that individual wants to do the show 6 months later. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah,
Um,
and I'm sure there was conversations with Cliff of like, yo, I did this show. I want to get that card, man. He's like, all right, well, we're gonna grow for like 2 years straight because you're not gonna grow for next 8 months and diet for 16 weeks and go get it. That's not gonna happen. Like, okay,
exactly.
cool, sounds good. How long do 2022? Okay, I got time.
Yeah, so let me ask you this. Do you know the difference in the morning body weight that you were from that 2019 Natural USA to the 2022 Natural USA? Like, did you weigh yourself at the hotel, like right when you wake up? Like, do you bring a scale? Because that was something we always did when we competed was we always brought our digital scale because one of the key things I always tracked was morning body weight right when I woke up at like 5 a.m. morning of the show. So I knew, okay, this is what I weighed at this show in 2007. This is what I weighed at this show here. I never did the whole, oh, I stepped on stage and weighed X because it's 5 hours later when I got water and food in me. It's more about what I weighed first thing in the morning after I go to the bathroom.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? On an empty stomach.
yeah. So 2019, I've always floated around that lightweight cutoff, which is
Sure.
usually 154 and change.
Yeah.
So I typically have to fudge my numbers a little bit to get that evening weigh in. So like even with Cliff, it's always been like, hey, we're probably gonna have to fast or at least like small doses of protein till weigh-ins, and then we can go from there. Because in order for me to be competitive, now it's not so much of an issue because I want that overall. If I'm in a show, I'm chasing
Absolutely.
that. So the weight class is kind of arbitrary. But but back then it was like, okay, we need to make lightweights. That's always the goal.
Uh,
So 2019, probably early 150s. But I remember, man, I still remember this because it was wild. We did the rapid backload for your show in 2022. So we did it before, but I don't think I had my scale with me.
uh,
I remember I think I made weight mid to late 151s because we wanted to be safe. And I woke up the next morning after the backload. It was 159.
really?
Yeah, it was fucking huge.
Morning of the show, you were 159, so you went up like 7 pounds.
Oh, full as a house, man. It was crazy. Because it was
Yeah,
like
you
900 grams of carbs and like 8 liters of water.
Yeah, and a lot of sodium. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you were definitely full. I mean, you were definitely peaked. Like that wasn't the thing. I remember the difference between 2019 and 2022 for you. Obviously, you're fuller and harder, um, but you had like this like denser, wider, squattier almost look on stage. Like you almost looked shorter on stage in 2022 than you. And I know some of the posing was different.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I feel like you. How tall are you, by the way? 5'8",
5'7", 5'7", maybe.
5'7",
Depends
5'8".
on the
Yeah. So you looked so much bigger and like thicker. You know what I'm saying? Than you did And really the weight difference was, well, I guess you were 159. So
Yeah, but like you
break
kind of
it up.
mentioned earlier, that's kind of a fudge number. Like true body weight, like maybe two, 3 pounds maybe of like actual tissue, but placed where it needed to be placed, and I was no like exponentially leaner, right? So you subtract 2 pounds of fat and add 3 pounds of muscle, and it looks like 10.
Exactly. Plus the posing was tweaked for the better,
Way
which
better.
also makes a huge difference.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I think that everything paid off, and you know,
yeah,
and I think having Brett Freeman backstage backstage with you at that show helped out, and the Natty News guys, and yeah, you looked fantastic at both shows. But I mean, there was definitely a noticeable difference in the 3 year game plan
yeah.
worked
There,
out.
there was, and I think too, like that would have been year, I don't know, 2019. So like basically year three of competing, of being a competitive bodybuilder to year six. So just
Hmm.
that level of maturity in my physique and
Sure.
the efforts in the gym continuing to compound, right? And that's something that I started to notice. Was like a lot of the guys that are really really good, they're older than me, right? Simply put, they've been doing it longer, right? And even from 22 to 2025, right? The next season I competed, I was 31 last year, so now, and Cliff said this, he's like, now we're going to really start to see what you're made of, because that mid 30s, mid to late 30s, that's when stuff gets spicy, right? So I'm excited to see what that brings, right? Because I've seen now a couple times what that jump in age and maturity and efforts in the gym unleashes. You know what I mean?
For sure. And I think depending on what weight class you could fall in when it comes to like a world stage, that could be a
Spoiler alert.
defining that could be a defining factor for you, because I can see your physique definitely being a top five at a world's caliber show in whatever weight class you fall in. But obviously, I think if you can make the lightweight, that would be,
That'd be
yeah, that would be ideal for you,
yeah,
because
yeah. Not
you
you
carry a lot of size.
at the pro level, right? It's a different ball game. You know what I mean? Especially at Worlds, right? Like to get in, middleweight or whatever at Worlds, like fuck, you're putting next to me to like Eddie Saldana and that kind of stuff, and that's a different ball game. But in the lightweights, you're right. I think kind of even the playing field with everybody around that 150 mark. It's like, okay, maybe we can do some damage here, right? So
Yeah.
time will tell.
Yeah, for sure. But and like I said, I had a feeling that even back then that you would get your pro card. And you got to remember too, like you said, hey, I haven't lost till this point. You were what, 21, 22? And even if you're a good bodybuilder out of the gate, if you're doing tough natural shows at that age, you got to expect to lose here and there. And I even remember for myself when I was like 23 and got my WNBF Pro card, like, dude, sometimes the judges would just talk, well, you're 23. And even though you're dramatically younger than everybody else in the class, I shouldn't have been judged
Yeah,
just because I'm young. You know
totally.
what I'm saying? And been like, oh, and that was the one thing I think competing with my dad and my brother is that I think even when we were in our 30s and stuff, people thought me and my brother were still like in our 20s, and it's like, no,
Got that young face.
I'm in my mid 30s now, man.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
but yeah, no, the natural bodybuilding, the good thing about it is shelf life, right? So it's like you could still get better in your obviously 30s, 40s, and sometimes even 50s. So
Yeah, it's a long game.
yeah,
Yeah, man. Yeah, no, for sure. I think that 2022 was a good. It was, man. It was all I wanted.
I know, dude. I know it was, and it was, we were proud to raise your arms just because, like I said, you knew what it took.
Yeah,
You understood. You're a student of the game. You have a strong passion for it. You can tell those types of people, man, like very, very easily. And those are the ones that tend to excel in the sport.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a special show, right? It meant a lot to me, and obviously, coming back after that 3 years, like, kind of like we talked about earlier about moments and making some key memories and stuff. Like if there was one show I would want to do it at, it was that one, not only for the event itself, but just like the to come back, man. 3 years later, you lose, and then it's like a movie. You know what I mean? The hero comes back, and they're like, "Nah, this is my time now. I'm gonna." I did the work in, and I remember, being just so calm, right? Like I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
were.
"What? I've done what I think is necessary, and
Sure.
kind of had blinders on about what was kind of happening around me, and just Cliff was confident. I was confident. I was feeling good. That was the fourth show of the season off 3 wins. So I was riding a high. I was like, well, let's see what we can do.
But that's a skill in its own right, though, right? Is to be backstage, to be at the show, knowing that you put in that much work, sometimes putting pressure on yourself, right? And then to be able to stay calm, because that's important. Like if your nerves start going, man, a lot of stuff can happen. So like for me to be able to stay calm, like I wear these like moccasins around my house all the time, like even in the summertime, because my feet are always just cold. But I, that makes me feel like I'm at home. So I bring those to the show because when I'm walking around backstage, it calms me. It makes me feel like I'm walking around at my house or something. And whatever people got to do, actually a skill in its own right to be confident, but also to be able to stay calm backstage. That's huge.
Yeah, and I had, you know, Brett was there.
Yep.
Obviously, Andy and stuff were there, but Brett was someone who that season I leaned into a lot. Who was a second eye, and obviously he'd worked with Cliff too, so he was kind of being helpful with like sending check-ins and forwarding to Cliff what's going on and this and that, and then James and Dan were there with Natty News. Like I just had a lot of
Yeah.
support, right? And I know obviously you guys, as the promoters and stuff, you're not going to play favorites, but you were just like, you look good, man. Go
Yeah.
out there and do your best. And like
Yeah.
I just had enough people in my ear being like, go get it, man. That I was just like, okay,
Well, it feels good too because you know that you had no stone unturned going into the contest, right? So it's like you knew you did everything you could, you put it all out there, and that's it.
yeah, yeah. And I think one thing that I did well at in 2022, not so much last year, was kind of stay in my lane and not look at anybody else. You know what I mean? And I think the kind of blessing about that show was like because it's in the States, I didn't really know, like there's no way I could have known if anybody else that I knew was doing it because it
Yeah.
wasn't local to me. And it kind of just kept me in my own thing. I'm doing it and I'm gonna bring my best and I couldn't tell you who else is gonna show up and it was good. And I think that's something that more people, including myself, need to lean into is kind of getting back to like just do your thing. Don't look at other people's photos.
Uh,
You can unfollow them for a bit. That's cool. No shade, no harm, right? Paul looks really good. I'm gonna turn Paul off for a little bit because I see his photos, then I second guess myself, and that reflects in your actions, right? And that's something that when I think of 2022, dude, I was so like people love to say you were locked in. Like, man, I was locked in to like my game
yeah.
paid off, right? And I think that's something when I compete again, I want to get back to is like less of this thing in my face and more of just like, just do your thing. Just do your thing.
Yeah, I think there's a time and a place for looking before a show. Like especially now at the pro level, like sometimes you just want to find out like, hey, who is doing this show possibly?
Yeah, who's gonna
Um,
invite me?
Yeah, and I definitely have stories like that in the past, but I didn't let it consume me. It wasn't anything that I think I just would find out who was doing a show sometimes, and then like literally a day or two before I even flew out, it was like, okay, I'm gonna watch this video of a posing routine from the past or whatever, just so I kind of knew what I was up against. And so you can kind of use your strengths or hide your flaws or whatever. But Yeah, no, I agree. I think if people just stay in their own lane too, that makes a huge difference because all you can do is focus on yourself and you have no control over anything else. So,
And you're never kind to yourself when you're comparing yourself to others most of the time.
yeah, most of the time.
Yeah, you're seeing, the perfect photo, and I use social media. I know how it works, right? You post that perfect side chest after a workout under the perfect lighting and you look incredible, but then you see that and you're like, "Oh, they look way better than me. Like, look at that. This is so good, this and that." But like you have zero idea how you're going to look next to them until you're side by side on stage. Till all things are equal with the lighting, with the tan, with the posing, then you see, right? Like I remember last year seeing people that I was like, man, like I want to win so bad, but look at this guy, and my wife would be like, "Just shut up, quit doing that, man.
Exactly.
Look at him, he looks so good." But then fast forward to show day, and it's like, oh, they're fourth because you have no perspective of scale, right? Like they look huge, like hey, not them, he's bigger than I am. What are you talking about? And that's where the comparison game is a deadly one, and it defeats people far before they ever hit the stage, you know.
Dude, if I had a quarter for every time people tried to judge a show backstage,
Oh, stupid,
it
man. Useless.
yeah, and it would turn into I've had people apologize weeks or two later where they're like, "Dude, I'm sorry, like for my family acting the way they did out in the crowd and this and that." And I looked at pictures of all of us in our class or a video, and they learned something. So they take a negative, and then all of a sudden they have completely revamped posing 2 weeks later, and they look completely 10 times better 2 weeks later. And where before they're looking at themselves, they're looking at the person that won, and they're like, oh, my arms are 2 inches bigger than that guy. That doesn't necessarily mean you're going to win. This isn't a body part show. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's definitely an interesting take, and it's something that's actually important because I think too many people get caught up on names or what people look like backstage, and that is farthest from the truth. I've been a terrible critic of my dad and my brother when I would go with them to coach them, and I'd be like, "Dad, man, these guys look almost sketchy or something," at like one of these shows. And my dad wouldn't be worried about it. He wouldn't be cocky. He would just be like, "Hey, I'm in shape." That's all he'd say. Or if I was getting worried, "Dad, there's Levi and Martin Ortiz," and my dad would be like, "Paul, relax. You're good." You know what I'm saying? Like, don't worry about it. And we were both right in our own ways. So, yeah, you can't beat yourself up over it. You just stay in your lane. You do what you got to do. You fine tune yourself. You put your energy into yourself in this game, and the dividends usually pay off long term.
Yep, yep. No, 100%, man. 100%.
And I remember a quick story about Freeman. I remember seeing Brett at, I believe, his very first show in like 2009 in Syracuse, which is the same show you got a pro card in before you won our show in 2022 at Halsey's show.
Yep, yep,
And I remember seeing him, and I'm like, dude, this kid's got some freaky legs, man. He was like 19 years old. He had these big glasses on stage and everything. And I'm like, he had this little small waist. He was in condition, and he had these big, huge legs from every angle. And it's not even like they were just big. He actually had deep separation, which is rare for someone to have that big of legs and still have deep cuts.
yep,
And I remember saying to myself, if that kid brings up his upper body a little bit over time and keeps coming in condition, he doesn't even have to have close to the biggest upper body. He just needs 2 more pounds of mass in his upper body, and he's going to get his pro card as a bantamweight. And he did. Like a couple years later, he just got his pro card, and then he's dangerous, and
yep. No,
you know,
100%. Yep, for sure.
so
Um, Anything else you wanna branch on before we kind of close this one out?
um, I uploaded a new channel on YouTube,
Okay.
bodybuilding family, bodybuilding family, all one word.
That,
Um, it's just a way for me and my family to kind of like give back to the sport in another way. I'm posting videos of the three of us from in chronological order from when we started, basically till present day. Of videos that I have, like some shows we don't have videos of, but along the way, I'm posting posing videos and prejudging footage of fellow top amateurs and pros along the way.
very cool.
So I'm hoping by the time it's done, I should probably have about 500 videos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and stuff that like just doesn't exist on YouTube, man. Like no one can find what Rob Hope looked like at the 2005 Worlds. I have that. Do you know what I'm saying? So when it comes to that time, it will be uploaded. So, and even some stuff that I might have seen once that I'm just like, wow, I totally forgot I went against Brandon Greenwood at the 2005 Amateur Worlds. You know what I'm saying? Like stupid stuff like that. So,
Cool.
yeah, so that's a quick shout out. And like I said, I'm just extremely motivated myself now in my 40s to try to come back and be presentable on a pro stage. So.
Well, you'll have to keep me in the loop what show so I can maybe make a trip.
Yeah, man. I'll definitely let you know. I mean, me, my dad, and my brother are definitely going to do a couple together, so um, it'll be cool.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, people. Well, if you enjoyed this episode of the Natty News Daily podcast, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and keep an eye out for the videos Paul's going to upload because it sounds like it's going to be a little natural bodybuilding library, which maybe Natty News can get their fingers in and post it up. That'd be cool.
It will be a library.
Awesome. All right, people. Thanks again, and we'll see you guys in the next one.